Thank you very much, Rahim. Okay, those of you who are in schools and teachers will know. That's a sign. Can we have the teachers? Yes, teachers, just put up your hands, okay? Oh, yes, at the back there. Or another technique is 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. It's basically a way of trying to manage a classroom. Okay, so this session is on engaging and efficient education. So number one, in terms of efficiency, is we're going to have to manage the time and win back the time that we've lost so far. So I seek your indulgence. We've been given an extra 15 minutes eating literally into your lunchtime. So this session will finish at 1:15. So engaging and efficient education. The second aspect of engaging is that I'm going to moderate from the floor. Hello, Dr. Peter, how are you? And I'm going to engage my audience just as a teacher should engage their class. I'm not going to be a sage on the stage. I'm going to be, what's the opposite of a sage on a stage? A guide by the side, okay? Instead of being a sage on the stage, an engaging teacher should be a guide on the side, right? So we don't want teacher-centric classrooms. We want student-centric classrooms, or in this case, participant-centric classrooms. So we will be taking questions at the end, but we, at the same time, will not take away from all my co-teachers on the stage there. I won't take away from your time, but I will be expecting you to give them some very challenging questions. Okay? So, engaging and efficient education, 3 very big and important E's there. Let me just add 5 more E's in order to set the context for this. The first E is ensure. How do we ensure that we provide learning that meets the needs of learners? The minister said this morning, we cannot provide one-size-fits-all curriculum or delivery. It has to be individualized, it has to be personalized. To what extent do we adapt and adopt to ensure that learning takes place? Okay, so one is ensure. The second is evaluate. Assuming that we are ensured, we have ensured that the learning is appropriate, how do we evaluate whether or not learners are engaged? The third E is examine. Assuming you are all engaged, how do we assess that learning? How do we ensure that you might be engaged, but are you learning? Okay, and this raises questions about, do we go for assessment of versus assessment for learning? Okay? The fourth E is about, I forgot my fourth E now. My fourth E is about examples. Can we have from the panel some examples of very innovative teaching practice that have been proven to work? Because we want to be data-driven and evidence-based, not just short sneery, right? We want proven examples. And the final E is experience. How do we learn? What are the lessons learned from our experience, especially lessons coming out of the pandemic, out of COVID-19, when there was so much learning disruption? And how do we accelerate learning to recover from those learning losses? Okay, so that's it from me. I'm not going to say anything more. I'm going to give each of our co-teachers here a maximum up to 8 minutes. And there's another E. I will be very exacting, okay? So it's up to 8 minutes. Let's start with Azlina from UNICEF. Your time starts now. It's 12:26.
Testing. Can you hear me? Great. Hi, everybody. This is what happens when your name starts with A. You always go first. So Nina, I will count on you to just remind me. Yeah. So before I start, I think there's been a lot of discussion on future-proofing education, future readiness. I wanted to share some reflections on what we've learned from our work globally and in Malaysia as well. With a quote, right, from my favorite philosopher that talks, Foucault, who talks about not everything is bad, but everything is dangerous, which is not the same as bad. If everything is dangerous, then we always have something to do. I think that the ethical political choice we have to make every day is to determine which is the main danger. When Foucault talks about danger, he's talking about the different consequences of the work that we do. And in terms of the decision making and in terms of our rigor when it comes to transforming things or innovating things, right? So unfortunately, when we talk about the future, not all children have the same access to the future that we're talking about. Even before COVID, there was already a learning crisis where more than 200 million children had no access to education. And when children had access, up to 38% of children were not learning the basic skills. So on one hand, you have issues of children not accessing education. On the other, when they did have access, there were issues related to quality. And if you look at specific groups of children, you will find that 1 in 2 children with disabilities do not have access to education. It's the same in Malaysia as well, right? So these are, and what COVID did was to exacerbate these inequalities. So I would like to contextualize our discussion as we talk about the future, and this is important. I think there are lots of things that we need to also think about when it comes to a future where it is accessible to everyone, right? Now, a point I would like to make also, some of these reflections. We had 5 million children, so globally it was 1.6 billion. Regionally, it was over 300 million, and in Malaysia, we had 5 million children whose learning were disrupted as a result of COVID, right? Now, 36% of children in urban areas did not have a single device at all, no gadgets for learning. 35% in rural areas, right? So even in urban areas, 1 in 3 did not have access to online learning. So I think it's important as we talk about innovations, the appeal, of course, is to do more. But studies have found that just doing more is not going to, just because we're doing more, we're spending more, doesn't mean that we are effectively looking at addressing issues related to learning poverty and learning losses, right? And it will take us about 100 years to reach a girl with disability. So just doing more is just good that we are just doing more, but doesn't mean that it's effective, and it will actually help with learning outcomes. The second reflection, so one is on data, right? What is the data and the context telling us? And on top of COVID, you've got conflict, you've got climate crisis, etc., etc. The point I would like to highlight also is to focus at the heart of everything that we do. We've realized that prioritizing the most marginalized children is the most important thing. However, when we talk about the marginalized, they are not a homogeneous group. There are layers and levels of marginalization, and I think thinking about a multiple deprivation data analysis becomes really important, because there's no point in, okay, children don't have devices, let's give everybody a device. If they don't have electricity, they don't have connectivity, if they come from a really impoverished household where parents have to choose between feeding a child and paying for data for connectivity. So that's another key learning as a result of COVID, for us to look at multiple modalities to learning in the event that there is a future shock to the education system, the same way COVID was, that children's learning will not be disrupted. Technology is one, but there are many different ways in which children can learn and have access to remote learning. And moving forward, looking at strengthening the multiple modalities to learning is what we need to be focusing on. So again, the idea, and when we plan systems or programs or initiatives, we need to start with the children with the greatest level or layer of marginalization. Do they have a disability? Are they poor? Do they have access? Because what works for the children with the greatest layer and level of marginalization will work for everybody else. Right now, the way in which we plan our programs or system is the other way around. It's for the mainstream, the privileged, and then we try and see, okay, how do we bring the marginalized in? That's not going to be a future-proof or future-ready society, because we know that what took France 150 years to become an aging population is taken Malaysia 50 years. A very quick note as well, when we talk about it, there's a lot of talk on innovation, but just to say, innovation, there is a myth when it comes to innovation. Just because we're doing something new doesn't mean it's innovative. In fact, innovation is not straightforward, it's not quick, there's not going to be a magic bullet that solves everything. It's slow, and a lot of the times things which are innovative may not be very effective. Like we know the work on MOOC, which has not been that effective. And as we move on to thinking about transforming, the goal is to improve equity and learning. It is not about the innovation in and of itself. So I know I've got about 2 minutes, okay. So just focusing on innovation for the sake of innovation. It is a means to an end, and focusing on the end becomes the paramount focus that we need to be, engaging in rather than the innovation in and of itself. I will stop there. For the sake of efficiency, but I just wanted to throw some of these reflections, and I'm also happy to take questions later. Over, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Azlina, for a really kind of broad overview there of the key issues. I think we'll go to a gentleman now. So maybe Vincent, would you share your thoughts on this? And you also have up to 8 minutes starting now.
Thanks, Nina. So hi, everybody. Thank you very much, KSI, for giving me this opportunity to share with you. I'm going to get very, very specific with what I'm going to share. There are quite a lot of areas here, but I really want to focus on the question of how do we know our students are engaged? And I'm going to tell you this from a story perspective so you can really take it home. But before that, I'm going to give you a word that you can take home and do something about it. You write this word down, 7C tripod, and then Google search that. And that's everything I'm going to tell you about is going to come from there very soon. So about 6 years ago, we were in an IB school. We only do the IB, Fairview International School, right? And we were asking ourselves, there was this conversation about the holistic child and how do we measure like education? Is it just grades, and are there other ways of doing it? So we were trying to figure out what are successful endpoints. Now, every business knows from OKRs to KPIs, you have to start with the end in mind. So we were searching for the end in mind. Now, this is how we normally know whether the learning process is good. This is the question we were trying to hit. We go into a classroom, we send in a head of department of science, say, go and observe a teacher, and then after that we meet with the teacher and say, well, I think this went well and this did not. Usually it ends up with an argument because the teacher thinks he did well and the head of the department doesn't. Either or, whichever, you have some problems coming from that approach. So with that, I'm going to tell you a challenger story, actually. And do you mind I borrow your, Datin, do you mind I borrow your help as well? Datin? Okay, I'm going to try this, okay? So if I am a boyfriend, okay? I'm going to give Azlina, my girlfriend, a gift. And Datin, Azlina's mother, is present. Whose opinion of whether the gift is a good gift actually matters? Is it the boyfriend giving this wonderful bottle of water? Is it the girlfriend who's receiving the gift? Or is it my mother, my potential mother-in-law, who's looking at the gift going, lousy little gift one. Whose opinion is the most important in this three-way conversation? Any guess? Yours? Mother. Mother's very, very scary opinion. I agree. What do you think?
Depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation.
Azlina's opinion is the most important. No one thinks the recipient. Who thinks the mother's view is the most important? Put up your hands.
Okay, we got a couple of hands from mothers.
This is the problem with engaged learning. Engage with what is happening. Okay, so let's start again. Who thinks the mother is the most important? Okay. Who thinks the giver, Vincent's view, is the most important? And who thinks Azlina's, the recipient's view, is the most important?
There we go. After years of marriage, I can tell you I know for certain my opinion never mattered in the first place. Every guy, you know this. It really doesn't matter whether you think your gift was good or not. If she didn't like it, it's game over. Now, your mother-in-law's opinion about the gift is also really important, but she doesn't overrule your girlfriend's opinion or your wife's opinion. At the end of the day, the moral of the story is this. When you give somebody a gift, it is the opinion of the receiver whose opinion is most important. Now, let's translate this to an education setting. I am the teacher. I am giving the gift of learning to my student. There is a head of department or principal or whatever it is observing me. Whose opinion matters? Student. But whose opinion do we often seek? Okay, and parents. Yeah, you can see the problem over here. We sat down and asked ourselves this question really hard. If the student's opinion is the one that really matters, why aren't we asking that question? So we figured out, there are a couple of ways of doing it. Some people put up little traffic light cards. I like this class or not. And then we fell upon this piece of wonderful research called the 7 C's. It's a research project that was actually funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they've got really great evidence to show that high scores on the 7 C's equates to nearly double the learning progress of a normal class. Now, the 7 C's are just words, right? Captivate. Does my teacher captivate me? Does my teacher care about me? Does the teacher control the class really well? Does the teacher consolidate? These are actually all pedagogical terms. So we thought, hey, this is a really great idea, and we implemented it. And the kickback that I got when we did this was terrible. The teachers really fought with me like crazy, saying, hey, Vincent, what if the students just like this popular teacher? And I told them, look, there's evidence to show if that the student likes a teacher, they also learn better. Is that a bad thing really or not? We then ran independent statistical research to confirm that when the 7 C's are high, our own IB scores went up as well. So we can confirm that student engagement improves IB scores by ourselves. And on top of that, the way that I speak to my teachers also changed. Previously, I would say, dear teacher, you think that you consolidate really badly. Your students think you are awesome. But you told me that you don't really care about your students, and your students say that they feel like you really care about them. Now, this is completely different from the old model. The old model is I'll come over to Azlina and I say, you don't care about your students, and you don't consolidate very well, and she'll pick a fight with me, and we'll not get anywhere. But in this situation, I say, this is what your kids are saying about you. How can I support you in this conversation? Now, if you notice, the entire dynamics are completely flipped. We have been running the 7 C's data on our students for nearly 4 years now. And what we can confirm is any class with a great 7 C's, any class where we can prove that the students themselves say that they are engaged in the learning process, is a class that almost always wins. Student engagement is important. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for that wonderful analogy on how engagement will lead to outcomes. So often we focus on the outcomes and the exams and the assessments without focusing on engaging. That is really the first point. If students are engaged, all the other, like you said, your IB results, everything will follow, right? Same thing with Finland. Everyone uses Finland and they say, oh, look, they didn't set out to become top in PISA. They set out to improve and engage their learners, and then the outcomes, the academic outcomes, came as a result of that. Okay, thanks. So next, I'm going to turn to Prof. Razainud from UNITA International University, and you also have up to 8 minutes starting from now.
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. That's my fan club. Thank you, Nina. It's always nice to be here in front of very learned, very experienced people. Thank you for having me here, KSI Institute. It's a pleasure for me. In fact, I look forward to this sharing. And usually wherever I go, I like to look at what is it that we are learning, basically. And therefore, let's take a test. For a start, how much have we learned so far from morning until now? And if we hear from the minister this morning, what is basically one keyword that we can coin and we can identify, perhaps? Anybody? One keyword from the Sarawak development. I just gave you the hint. Development. Am I the only one here in the hall? Is everybody here? Yes, good. And what about the last panel? What did we learn from the last panel? Any keyword? No keyword? We didn't learn anything? And therefore, it's not effective in terms of the learning platform and also the sharing part? Yes? No? No? No response? What did we pick up, let's say, from Prof. Dato' Noraini's session, from her sharing? Execution. What else? The call to all the teachers, to all the lecturers, to all the teaching force, to ensure that we can actually convert, instead of the classroom learning, onto something that we can actually manufacture our own brand, our own local brand, local mobile telephone, instead of looking out and looking east, looking west, correct? And that's the point where I want to pick up on collaboration. Yes, I agree. And I like to extend from Prof. Dr. Noraini just now, that we need to also collaborate with the industry. Why? Because we are training, we are teaching the students in our class, and we supply for the job force or the employees, their employees. We do that. My experience, many years experience, I used to be in UITM for 34 years, retired. Then after that, I joined private universities, and I'm now in UNITA. So what I notice is that there is always the call and encouragement to bring industry to the classroom, to bring industry advisors. In fact, Nina here is our adjunct professor for UNITA. And UNITA, we have more than 70 adjunct professors, and faculty of business alone, we have more than 50. And the number is growing. Why do we do that? Because we want that collaboration. And why do we want that collaboration? I was a few times asked, what are you all teaching your students? Why are they not ready at work, in their firm? Why? And they forget, the employers, they forget that they were once upon a time at the university, in school, and then we leave school, we join the workforce. Once upon a time, we were also new hires. We were also a new employee, intern, apprentice, And we turned back, and then we now asked, and we are now at a senior position, and I got asked, why is it that your students are not industry ready? But you know, we go through this journey. If you can reflect ourselves, we were once upon a time at kindy. Did everybody go to kindergarten? Yes? No? I did not. Oh, you all went, so you had that privilege. I did not. I went straight into standard 1. Then, I mean, typically, if we follow the process of the school children, the students, how they go through the schools, the primary school, and then the secondary, and then they go into the universities, colleges, and so on. So at each stage, each of the, if you say teachers, they are supposed to transform, convert the students to a level. So they sit for the SPM. Before that, I used to sit for the standard 6 exam. Then after that, we go on to the secondary. 2 minutes, no, cannot. And, you know, so we have processed, or we have so-called manufactured, the raw material coming into the university, coming into the schools, and we turn them into graduates. And isn't it the responsibility of the employers then to continue this training from the university onto the industry? So this is where the collaboration, my point is let's all collaborate in order to look for effectiveness of learning, because learning does not stop at the school level or the university level, and it should be continuing, and therefore the employers to take charge, and they should collaborate with the universities and co-teach with us, come to us. That is what we do in UNITA. We get the practitioners. Nina will come and share her experiences. Let's hear from the horse's mouth. Let's visit the industry. I think that is what we should do. Let's collaborate in order to go for effective learning. So we are all important. We are actually the proof of our teaching and learning system. And if I can recall, and you can also recall, I was in a car listening to a radio station, and I heard this from our previous PM. Guess who? No, before that. And what he said was, who I am does not matter, but what I do to you and to the people, to the citizens, matter. So let us all do our part and ensure that we provide this effectiveness, we provide this good citizens with all those good qualities. Thank you. It was Tun Hussein On, the late Tun Hussein On. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Razimon, for that reminder and the importance of collaboration for engaging and effective learning. Okay, we're now going to turn to you, Prof. Kenneth from Phoenix Asia Academy, to share your thoughts on engaging and effective education.
Hello. Yeah. Okay, it's really afternoon. Very good afternoon to everyone. I'm trying to share the experience from college point of view. First of all, delivery quality educations. Everyone is capable of doing this, every providers. But we have to, what I want to stress now is from the learner point of view, the learner perspective. First, what kind of students we are teaching? Most of the universities nowadays, you have quality students, you have all the A students. But have you ever thought of those students did not score well in SPM, those students did not score well, or those students are not A students? What kind of learner they are? So it's a different person. If we try to deliver quality education to different learners, or to the students who have A's or doing well in high schools, or the students who are not doing well, how to deliver quality education for students who are not doing well? I think that's also another thing we should stress. First, with our experience, first thing is attitude. We always need to share, or we share to students that first, A's is important, but another A's is more important is attitude. the attitude of you giving yourself a second chance to study in higher education. You may not do well. What is happening to you? Why? Why did not do well? So when you're in college, you have to find out what is the reason. You have problem with your study. You have the problem of your learning. Where is the learning? Because the current system is more to auditory, which is the lecturers teaching or the teachers who are teaching, students listen. The learners have different because those students who are not doing well does not mean they are bad students. So we always share first the attitude. You have to think the attitude of you. If you want to be a student, if you want to learn, the attitude of learning, the attitude of you join the college and how you're going to improve your education. And then with this lifelong learning, because you not learn to go for tests. We always tell the students, you don't go for the test. If you learn to go for the test, you are just a test machine. But how are you going to learn? So there are two types of learners. There are students who are learn from auditory, the student from the kinesthetics, which is more movement. There are students from, they are learners of visual learners, different types. Some are writing and reading learners. Some are social learners. Some are the considered the self-learner or solitary learners. So all types of learners. First thing we also tell the students, you have to change your attitude to think how you're going to graduate as a diploma holder to fit the industry needs, earn higher than the degree holders. This is how a college provider teach. For me, we teach that. We teach our students, you have to learn to analyze the job opportunity out there. You have to learn, if you are a diploma holder, how are you going to compete with the degree holder if you don't want to further degree? You got to learn, and how are you going to analyze? That's why we ask a student to analyze what is the GM for those who work in the hotel. What is the financial? Those positions they needed, financial analysts, accountants. What kind of quality of student they want. Then when you learn, you study, the same textbooks that you learn from other colleges, it's just everyone sharing the same textbook, same syllabus. Of course, just only the teaching, just only the environment, only for college, we give them the different training ground. So with all these, we train. For example, I train China students. It's not easy to train China students who come to study abroad in Malaysia. They may not do well in their home country. So first thing, when they arrive to Malaysia, I tell them one thing only. You are not here for 5 years holiday package. You are here to be a student for 5 years for your English, continue by your bachelor. So first thing is your attitude. Second, your method of learning. With good universities, we have all sorts of good students around. So we have all the syllabus, but you have to identify. We tell the student, we give them the assessment, motivation assessment. Identify what types of learner you are. So you identify what type of learner you are, you change. Because when you go to this university teach, you do your assignment, but you identify your weakness, you try to find some other opportunity to fill in your weakness. So we give all sorts of this kind of counseling. So as what I want to share is delivery quality education to students who are not doing well. There still can be chances because the students that I recruit from China, the students that we train in our college, they actually earn higher than the average pay of the degree holder, even though they are a diploma. The students that we recruit, we send to public universities, we send to private universities. They do well. They may not do well in their high school, but they score well, CGPA 3.75, 3.5. Why? Because we let them to identify their weakness. so that they can overcome their fear. Learning no longer for exam. Learning is fun. Learning is lifelong. Learning is for long-term career. That's what we are doing. Thank you.
Very much, Prof. Kenneth, for that reminder of different learning styles and how effective and engaging learning must take into account the different learning styles. Okay, last but not least, she played a parent in Vincent's example. She actually is a parent in real life, and not only that, she has spent the better part of the past, how long has it been now? Has it about 20 years? She founded the Parent Action Group for Education, PAGE. We are fellow parents, actually. It's an organization that she started when we were both on the PIVG, and Tunku Muna is here as well, of a local national school. So let's hear from a parental perspective, Datin Azimah, on engaging and effective learning.
Hello? Okay. Thanks very much, Nina. Okay, I'll be quick because I know I'm in between this session and lunch, right? So anyway, what I'd like to talk about really is that for some of you who know, we were behind PPSMI, Science and Maths and English. We established ourselves in 2008, and we've been along for so long already. And then I was in the committee that after PPSMI was abolished, I was in the committee that actually helped form the dual language program, and which is ongoing now. But I think first of all, what I'd like to say is that I think we should congratulate Sarawak for what they've done thus far. And yes, it's so amazing, and they're on their own trajectory. And it was in I think a similar forum, either KSI or ASLI before this. I remember the Education Minister of Sarawak came to me and he said, "We are gonna go PPSMI all the way." And he said to me, "How do I do it?" But obviously they've overcome the challenges and they found a way. And I think even though they very politically correctly say DLP, they actually have never stopped PPSMI since 2003, if I'm not mistaken. So, and now you see the success of PPSMI now followed by DLP in Sarawak. And I think it is so amazing. And just last week, the World Bank announced that Sarawak is now a high-income state. And alongside, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, maybe even Selangor, but they've also vowed that in 8 years' time, they're actually going to double that income. So they're very focused about what they want to do. And I think the Minister of Education needs to be credited as well. But I think also here in Malaysia, in Peninsula rather, why can't our Jabatan Pendidikan Pengaras be as dynamic as the Education Minister of Sarawak? I think we can do wonders if that can happen, because I think our children have a lot of potential. It's a matter of giving the opportunity. So now, dual language program. The reason why we did not make it a policy because we learned the mistakes from PPSMI. PPSMI was a policy, so it meant that everybody had to do it. But the teachers weren't ready, and there were, I think the resources were adequate, but the teachers were not equipped to become facilitators. It needed a mindset change. So it was called a program, and unfortunately the Minister of Education now says it's just a program. Why must we give it so much attention? But I think that's the wrong way to go. Also, if we are going to follow the footsteps of Sarawak, taking a leaf from what Panellists said earlier on, she said that, and which is shocking to me, how can we only have 15% of our students going into the science stream in Form 4? I think this is the lowest ever. I think so far we've been averaging about 25, maybe 24% of students going into the science stream. But if you say that it's gone down to 15%, then I think it's very, very worrying. And if it's just 15% of students who are doing science stream, why don't we just do it in English? Just do away with a dual language program in Malay and just give everybody it in English because that is the language for STEM. No argument. Thank you. So, but I also want to give credit to Dr. Rosmuni, who's in our audience. She was in the earlier session. I want to say that it was her, very bravely, who was heading the Institute Perguruan Malaysia, Institute Guru, in where the institute teaches primary school teachers. She's the one who started the policy of all science and maths teachers being taught to teach these two subjects in English. So there's no reason why we should have teachers who cannot teach in English anymore, teach science and maths in English anymore. And the reason why we kept to science and maths to science and maths subjects is because these are the only teachers who have minors in English. That is the reason. We did consider history, history, whatever, geography, music, in English, but they just could not hack it. So this is the reason. So I think if we were to continue with this dual language program, but this dual language program is funny because when we came up with the dual language program, there were only 3 criteria that we suggested, we recommended to the minister, and he accepted it. And then he was told to leave, but that's another story. That was Muhyiddin Yassin, by the way. So the 3 criteria were that you must have adequate resources in the school, the teachers must be ready, and parental written permission. The parent must agree. But as we went along, and without the permission of the team who actually came up with the formation of DLP, this Pejuang Bahasa comes in and says the school must meet the BM criteria for it to be a DLP school, which is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. And I think this is holding back dual language program because half the schools in the country don't meet that requirement. So imagine the ministry is actually shortchanging the schools and especially the students all because of this Pejuang Bahasa requirement which was thrown in at the very last minute. So we have been pushing for the minister to review this BM criteria because I think it's holding back students from, again, using Prof. Noorani's words, from becoming creators rather than users. Why can't we creating our own handphones, our own technologies, our own EV chargers, our own laptops, whatever have you, so that we can move away from the trap of being a manufacturer only, move up the next level, so that will be our export instead of just manufacturing. So I think this is what I want to say today, and I think that we have to keep pushing. I think the ministry has to give in to this to students who want dual language program but are being pushed into non-dual language program classes. And I think this is a very serious matter. The minister has to confront it before I go public on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Datin Azimah. Yes, and that is often the case. The rhetoric, for example, of DLP sounds fine, but the reality is that they will add additional requirements that will hold back from the execution of the policy. So the rhetoric and reality, there's always this gap. Okay, I know that I'm literally standing before you and lunch, but I would really like to hear from the audience. Can you please identify yourself? There's a lot of very interesting points that have been made by our esteemed panelists. Would someone like to ask a question? Yes, please stand up. Oh, it's Puan Zuhaira. Please introduce yourself and your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Zuhaira Ali, and I'm an education activist and also from the National Association for Gifted and Talented Children, Malaysia. I was very intrigued by Dr. Vincent's approach on assessing the effectiveness of a program by asking the children. My suggestion is that why can't our education system acknowledge the child more significantly and better by asking them what would they like to do? In what language would they like to learn STEM? What are the subjects that they would like to explore? What would they like to innovate? What would they like to do for their country? What would they like to do for their community? In other words, I am suggesting that maybe our system should give the child and the student more voice. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so Vincent, I'm going to take that. The importance of student voice and student agency in learning.
Wow, I really resonate with what you said. Thank you so much for acknowledging it. One of the biggest things that we actually learned when we started applying it, we thought we were just checking up on engagement and achievement scores, but as we started applying it, we realized that, we need to serve the people that we say we are serving. There's a concept called servant leadership, and I think every teacher is a leader. And a leader needs to serve the people he's chosen to serve. The point at which the leader says, I know better than you, do what I tell you, is the point at which we're not actually serving the student or the learner in the way that they want to be served. We can guide them, of course, they make mistakes, but the orientation of mind needs to be clean. Who am I serving and how do I serve them best? And in order to do that, you got to ask them. Thank you.
Absolutely. I know it sounds like such a simple premise, but if only we could put the student at the center. I'm talking in the national, in government schools. If only we put students at the center, a lot of the issues would go away. We're not there for the convenience of teachers or PPD officers or JPN or anybody. Students should be at the center. Another question. Yes, the gentleman here in the red tie. Yes, red tie. Please stand and introduce yourself.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to refer this question to Professor Kenneth. That just now, what he had shared, in particular for those, my question more refer to, it seems that actually currently we have a situation out there, many of our young people who are the chiche, so-called, from the SPM, whether they didn't attend the exam for the SPM or they actually fail in the SPM. And as what I understand, although I don't have the exact figure, the number is in the tune of 20 to 30 over 1,000 of these type of people. And the current trend is, because we are doing sales, training, that kind of thing, our course, our work, we understand that nowadays young people tends not to study. Tak mau baca buku. Like that, So what you think, I'm attracted by the way Prof. Kenneth just now mentioned about how you have this type of 4 type of learner. Is that the way you approach it and how you train them from the way the attitude or other skill. How do we approach people like this? Because to me, I feel that this actually is a big potential to develop, and it is a waste to our country. Such young people have not having a chance to come into the mainstream, so-called the education path.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Prof. Kenneth, do you want to answer that question?
Thank you. I think for our research, the numbers statistic that we analyze is about close to 300,000 students did not do well in SPM. It's true that this is the worst, one of the worst results ever. But yet, the newspapers always publish how many A's, and how many A's. But no one cares or talks about them. So, with this category of students, they did not do well SPM. I believe they are 2021, 2022 students in their Form 4 and Form 5 when they are online. The teachers is only focused to deliver the course. deliver the class, but does not care whether they listen or not. They are on their their page or not, the teachers just teach only. Because we only focus to teach, but we never think of the learners. The learners they're not auditory. They need to be in the class. They need to have additional homeworks or additional works that they study at home. The skills. Just like my nephew did not do well at all because I asked him, in the last 2 years, what are you doing? I attend class. I on the website. I on the Zoom, but I play the games. The teacher doesn't know. In the last 2 years, and he failed all the subjects. He failed all. I say, fantastic. There's no choice. But at least we still got, the students still can, I told them, never give up. Because if you did not do well in SPM, it's either you repeat, or if you don't want to repeat, you can go for TVET. Because it's always the opportunity for you to go through the TVET route and come back to the normal system, as long as you change your attitude. It's all about attitude. So the reason is we only care about how we deliver the class. We never care about the learners. So that's why SPM like this. So, and then when the student come back to college, which is now we recruit quite a number of students, they did very bad. So that's also, we give them counseling, confident, because learning is long term. It's not about you're going to be a you're going for the jobs. You can earn 2,000, 2,005, but you need to study. You need to have qualification plus skill. That's the things. They're supposed to have this awareness, but the awareness is not there because of confidence.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Kenneth. Before I give the final say to Datin Azimah, I think this kind of goes back to what Azlina was saying about there already was a learning crisis prior to COVID-19. And the years of the pandemic has only deepened that crisis. And yet, when we've gone back, we kind of just buried our head in the sand, right? And just think, okay, let's just go back to the old normal. It's not about going back. You go back, you've got to accelerate to make up for those losses. But really, I don't see that in Malaysia that we're really taking that very seriously, which is how it has manifested itself in these really alarming statistics in terms of keciciran, in terms of, SPM results. Okay, last word to Datin Azimah before we all go for lunch.
Thank you. I'm going to rattle on some figures. This is from the National Center for Learning Disabilities, US. It's not from Malaysia, only because we don't have the statistics. But I think that we are not far from it. In fact, maybe even worse. 32% of students with learning difficulties drop out of school. 38% of the youth with learning difficulties are employed. Only 38%. Prison inmates with learning difficulties are 3 times more likely to be excluded from school. Half of young offenders are dyslexic. 55% of people have crime involvement 8 years after leaving school. 60% of those seeking substance abuse treatment have learning difficulties. And 75% of dyslexic students are undiagnosed after 10 years of schooling. And ironically, a year in prison costs the government 12,775 ringgit per year, whereas it only takes to educate a student for 20 ringgit a year. So I think when the Minister of Education recently announced that the ministry is going to build a sports school for students with special needs, I think she needs to give it a rethink, because I think it probably be more financially independent for these students if she built a TVET school for students with special needs. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, we are bang on 1:15, so thank you to my wonderful panel for being so effective, and thank you to this wonderful audience for being so engaged. That's it. Thank you very much. It's over to lunch now. Thank you.
Thank you.